Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Okay, we can start now. Kathy's back. Good morning, everybody. My name's Randy, and I'm a codependent. And to my left here is Vanna White. She's my assistant. That's my wife, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm codependent. Hi, Kathy.
Let's open the meeting with a serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I always like to start the meetings up by telling the truth, and I'm a little bit nervous this morning for some reason. Usually when I speak, I'm not nervous, but I am this morning. So that's out there in the universe. Now maybe it's gone. What the purpose of this workshop is to gain a better understanding of how we can benefit from working the 10th step in our daily routine. And for me, there's 3 different types of 10 steps. I mean, it's all the same, but there's a spot check, which during the day, as we're working and interacting with other people, you know, if our behavior acts up, we can do a 10 step right there on the spot. And I've had to do that myself plenty of times, especially when I was working a lot. I would be in the field, and I'd get into it with a superintendent, and I'd leave the job, and I'd be calling my CoDA sponsor, and he'd tell me I need to call the guy back and do a 10-step. And I'll tell you, for me, it really helped a lot because I could go on with the rest of my day and not be all whacked out in the head. Because myself, I know when I need to make amends to somebody. There's a little story about when my wife, one night, we had a little tit, you know, and I was doing my prayer at night, and it came to me that I needed to make an amends to her. But I put my heels in and said, yeah, but I'm not going to do it tonight. I'll do it in the morning, you know. And I didn't do it that night, but the next morning I couldn't wait. I woke her up early and said, you know, I'm sorry for my actions last night. So that would be, you know, a spot check on, you know, during the course of the day, just to relieve me of whatever's going on in my head. And there's the one that we can do at the end of the night. And you'll see in this package, we put together a little 10-step guide that you can follow. It's like page 4, I think, here in the packet. It's just some suggestions. This all comes right out of the CoDA book. Not all of it. There's some other ones that we just, you know, Kathy and I do by ourselves. So that's for your keeping. You can take it home, make copies of it or whatever. This workshop's going to be interactive. You know, we're not going to do all the talking, because then I think it's all about me, and I don't want it to be all about me. This is about you. So, you know, we're going to kind of follow this guideline. So I'm going to turn over to my wife real quick to get us all loosened up here. So.
Thanks, honey. Welcome, everybody. Before I forget, because it is interactive, I just want to remind everybody it's being recorded. So if you are asked to participate, or if you want to participate, it's important that you come and use one of the 2 speakers so that it can be heard, because we don't have anything that we can pass around. Okay. It's early. We're all kind of awake. Some of us have had our coffee. If you so choose, I would like everybody to stand. Has anybody heard of laughing yoga? I have some participants, I think, that have joined me before. Laughing yoga just kind of loosens us up, gets everything out of our system. And it goes something like this. Okay, you guys, this is big for me because I'm embarrassed. You got to take a deep breath in. I crack myself up sometimes. You know, it sounds silly, it feels silly, but look, I have faces that are smiling at me. And it's just such a good relief of whatever it is that's going on in our bodies. So that's kind of my fun way of starting this out. You can all sit down now. Try it at home. The other thing I like to do is a 1-minute smile. Stand in the mirror or ask your mate, date, partner, whatever. Give me a 1-minute smile. For 1 minute. It just breaks up whatever's going on. We're kind of winging it here, you guys. I guess this is how recovery works. There's no right or wrong way. We just kind of go through it. So we've got a guideline and an outline, and so we're going to kind of read through here and wing it. We're ready to start, right? Yeah. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to start basically by reading the step 10. We've broken it down into 4 categories, and if I can get 4 people that would volunteer to read each section that we've got marked up here, I would appreciate it. Come on up.
Real quick, that 1-minute smile, when I'm upset in the car, she'll do this. Somebody, Randy, give me a 1-minute smile. I don't want to, and I won't do it. But she'll do it enough times where I finally start laughing, and I can't stop laughing for a long time. So it really helps get you out of your head. Okay, Gary, read it.
Just this first paragraph, please.
Hi, I'm Gary, grateful, recovering codependent. Step 10 asks that we continue taking personal inventories. This connects us to our program and helps us increase our awareness. The step talks about a personal inventory and offers an additional tool for us. The moral inventory in step 4 helped us understand our history. A personal inventory helps us see the choices we are making now and the actions we are taking today. How are these choices and actions supporting us in our lives today? Are things going well or poorly? When we have been wrong in our choices or actions, this step tells us to admit it promptly. The wording of step 10 offers a clear perspective on our being human. When we are wrong, it says that sometimes we are wrong. We are not and cannot be perfect. Thus, step 10 supports our relationship to our higher power.
Thanks, Gary. I want to open the discussion on this first paragraph that we have here. I had a situation just this week at work, and the brief of it is that my assistant came to me about a year ago. Her sister bought a house. Her sister asked her and her husband and their 4 kids to move in with them, which was great. The sister then relocated her job to Arizona, and she was telling me that her sister's coming back, but that they need to find a home. And the good codependent that I am just jumped in and started giving her my opinion. And I didn't ask if she wanted advice or suggestions or anything. I just jumped in. That bothered me throughout that day and throughout that night. And that was that feeling that you get of just, it didn't feel right to be in that behavior. So the next morning, I got an opportunity to tell her that we have a good relationship, but I told her that that wasn't the way that I wanted to show up in that relationship, and I made my amends to her. So that's kind of a situation that happened to me that I feel it. I feel it in my stomach. It doesn't clear my head. It's something that keeps coming back. And when I have that happen, I know that that's my opportunity to correct that, make an amends, to clear my conscience and make me feel better. So,
In this last paragraph, when we were wrong, says that sometimes we are wrong. We are not and cannot be perfect. So, that's the thing we got to remember is that we're only human beings. And as hard as we try during the day to be perfect, I think that's a character defect, is our perfection. At least it is for me. Is I try to be perfect during the day. And sometimes the only person I owe amends to is myself, because I am such a perfectionist. And sometimes I'm just flat wrong. And maybe I haven't done any harm to anybody else, but like I said, when I get into that perfectionism mode, the person I'm harming the most is myself. And so we got to remember that sometimes the 10th step isn't for somebody else. Sometimes the 10th step can be to us. So we're going to open this up for anybody that wants to discuss this, anything they heard in the reading that they like. Come on up to the microphone, and we'll just have a little discussion about it. Don't be shy. I know names.
To me, where it says, sometimes we were wrong.
Oh, who are you?
I'm Dory, a codependent.
Hi, Dory.
When it says sometimes we were wrong, means to me that sometimes I need to set healthy boundaries, that I don't fall for guilt that other people try to put on me. I'm not always wrong. And so I need to look at that also.
Thanks, Dory. You know, the other thing, how are these choices and actions supporting us in our lives today? I like to tell my sponsees a lot of times, how's that working for you? You know, because sometimes we want to be right rather than being happy. And so, you know, we'll fight everything, you know. And so I got to be, that's another character defect, is I fought everything in my life, you know, for so many years. And today I quit fighting everything and everybody. That's a choice I make. It's pretty easy for me right now because I'm kind of isolated in my house, and I'm not isolated in a way where I don't interact with people, but I'm not working anymore. That's not by choice, but I'm not working. So it's pretty easy for me. I spend a lot of time, like I say, by myself and a lot of time thinking. And so therefore, when I'm out in the world, I treat everybody, one thing my CoDA sponsor told me is, you know, I treat everybody like I want to be treated. It's real simple. Do I want to be, you know, put down? Do I want to look down, you know, do I want to be looked down upon? Do I want people judging me? Like say I'm not perfect, and I can do pretty good inventory on people once in a while. And but I try not to do that today. That's part of the 10-step.
I just wanted to add to that too. You know, when I was doing my steps with my sponsor, and I made my list of people that I had harmed and that I needed to make amends to, the most difficult part for me today even is admitting and having to make an amends, because I feel like I've disappointed you, I've let you down. And that's real difficult for me to look at. But each time that I'm able to make that amends, I feel my heart opening. And so that's important to know, that it's uncomfortable, and I do feel like I'm admitting or making a mistake, or that I've let you down, I've disappointed you. But it does open my heart, so I just wanted to share that.
Hi, I'm Darcy. I'm a recovering codependent. I have a flip side of this story, because I have so often, especially early in my recovery, used admitting we were wrong to create a lot of drama in my life. And so I would find a way that I was wrong so that I could go and talk about me. The other thing I found is that, especially with people who are close to me, who I wanted to maintain a relationship with, I'm thinking of my sister, who would never admit she was wrong, and yet I would try so hard. I would come up with something so I can go to my sister, admit I was wrong, and I have this hope inside that somehow this was going to mend the relationship. And so I would try over and over and over for years, trying to find stuff that I was sorry for, hoping that she would come around and admit that something was up with her, that she really had some kind of a resentment towards me. I was doing everything I could to get her to come close with me, and no matter what I did, she didn't have that, and she never would. And so I realized I was using this manipulatively to get somebody else to heal a relationship that was out of my control. So I was, again, trying to control a relationship. So letting go of this, being able to admit when I'm wrong. But you know what, sometimes there's nothing to admit. I'm really digging, and it's for other reasons. So, thanks.
So one of the key things to look at that I always tell my sponsees and guys that I work with is that what's your motive behind everything you do? You know, I've heard, Randy, that's pretty codependent behavior on different subjects. I say, no, it's not, because what's my motive? You know, am I looking for something out of it, or is it just because, you know, like with my wife, just because I love her. I want to do this for her. It's not a codependent behavior. Sometimes it's just an act out of love, you know. It's as simple as that, you know. And the other thing that's important is that, remember, the 10th step isn't for the person you're doing the 10th step on. The 10th step is for you, you know. I have a sponsee right now that's doing some amends letters, and he was, in the amends letter, he was trying to justify his actions to his daughters. And I says, no. And he realized it before and was telling me about this. I go, no, if you want to talk to your daughters, you just make amends for your actions, all right? And if they want to forgive you, that's up to them too. You can't ask them for forgiving, you just apologize. Because to me, the important thing is that the 10th step is not asking for forgiveness. Because if you're asking for forgiveness, you're asking the other people to take action. And you're the one that's supposed to be taking the action.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm codependent. Hi, Michelle. I like the part about the inventory in step 4 helped us understand our history, our past, and that this one, the personal inventory in step 10, helps us see the choices we're making now and the actions we're taking today. For me, the 4th step's always really big because I get to see all this denial. Like my whole past was this big cloud before CoDA, and the step 4, let me see what was there, and then the step 10 lets me see who I am today, because I still get denial about who I am today. I get a lot of where I can talk myself into things or talk myself out of things, and like one of the new patterns, I can use recovery jargon, like, oh, I'm not avoidance, I'm practicing self-care, and I like to trick myself to this day. And one of the things that's been really helpful in my program is if the words and the actions don't match, trust the actions. Because I can have a lot of words. I know that exercise is really important to me. And I care about being healthy, and I eat healthy, and I do all of these things healthy. But when I look at my 10th step, exercise is never, ever, ever, ever on there. So I can say I value exercise until I get blue in the face. But the actions, that's my real truth. That tells me, you know what? It's not a priority. So instead of trying to force myself to exercise and then feel guilty that I'm not doing it, instead maybe I need to step back and I need to pray for the willingness to make that a priority, because the behavior always stems from the belief. For me, my beliefs drive all of my behavior. So I can't focus on that behavior, what I want to change, until I really get to what's the belief behind it. And for me, the 10th step helps me see that. It helps me see what the priorities in my life are, not what I say they are, what sounds nice when I talk to other people and even when I talk to myself, but what am I actually doing? What are the choices that I'm actually making today, and what are the actions that I'm actually making today? Not just what sounds nice. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joy, a codependent woman. Picking up with that, how are these choices and actions supporting us in our lives today? Are things going well or poorly? In order to determine the answer to that question, I have to look at myself, not others. Because I can look out and see that so-and-so's day isn't going very well, and that avails me nothing. It's when I take that and I pull it back to me and say, how are things going today, Joy? Well or poorly? If they're going poorly, then the next thing is, when we have been wrong in our choices or action, this step tells us to admit it promptly. So in other words, I've learned that if I want serenity in my life, I want peace in my life, I want good relationships, I want healthy relationships and love. I have those with certain people, and it comes very naturally. But with others, it's a struggle. And so it's extremely important for me to look at how my actions are affecting another person, my choices. And then not just that, but when I see I'm wrong, to admit it promptly. That's really hard for me. I have a very difficult time, I'm very stubborn and non-compliant with that. And I have to, oftentimes, I need to talk with my sponsor and say, look, this just went way haywire, and I ended up way out in the weeds here, and what do I do? And I have to know that I'm not alone, that there is help. And I just need to pick up the kit of tools. But oftentimes I have to be at a meeting and hear the solution, or talk to another CoDA or my sponsor, and there it is. And then just get into action. Thank you.
Thanks, Joy.
My name's Christian. I'm a codependent. And I'm grateful to be a miracle of God in all my programs of recovery. Something you said just rang some bells for me when you were talking about your interaction with your coworker. I had a father that was an incredible man. He was a yeoman in the Navy at World War II. He was the yeoman, which is like an assistant to the admiral, which was the commander of the Pacific Fleet. Just well-groomed, well everything. I grew up with 3 older sisters, and I was the young boy. And, I grew up with these fears and less than, a lot of the same feelings that a lot of us have. And then I got into a relationship with somebody that pretty much finished every single sentence I ever did. And immediately, whenever anything came up at any time, there was all these opinions that came out long before anything was ever asked for. Now, my diseases had taken me to a point where, I overcompensated for my less than ability. So, I automatically knew everything. And, I was very successful with that. And if you think money is a form of successful, my business just did well. And I grew to be in my own brain some kind of authority. And, through recovery and things that happened to me along the way, I realized that, I'm not driving the bus, and my higher power definitely does for me what I cannot do for myself. But through the process of CoDA and Al-Anon and some of the other things I've been involved with, the biggest lesson is to learn for me not to jump in the cage with a gorilla. There's nothing I can do there. And it's a work in progress. It's really hard when you start a thought process and on your second word someone's already offering that information to you. It's hard to just sit there and go, are you done yet? Or something like that. I have a difficult time sometimes just not wanting to just go, ah! But, I've learned the tool, that we do in this program to pause long enough to really think, is it worth this confrontation? One of my other programs in their literature, it says, as in war, the victor only seems to win. There is no winner or loser. Anything that takes away from my serenity, I'm the loser, no matter what. So I'm really grateful for these rooms. I'm grateful for all your shares, and I'm grateful you're having this 10th step stuff.
Thank you.
10th step stuff. Thank you for your share.
We got one more. Then
Hi, I'm Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
I want to thank you two for being here doing a workshop. I remember you both from last year, so it made an impression. Step 10 to me is important as step 1 because I always have to go back to it. This is my 3rd year in CoDA, and I've been married over 23 years, and my husband's over there, Mark. So I'm working on a relationship now, and I had to be happy with myself before I can be happy with anybody else. In 10th step, the reason it's so important for me, I have to remember it's not about me. And to me, in the very beginning, everything was about me. I was the victim. And as long as I stayed in the victim mode, all I thought about was me or worried about what my husband was doing. I know I'm powerless. So in step 10, it reminds me, it's not about me and I'm powerless, that all I need to do is take care of me. And that's what we forget to do. We see this big mirror in front of us, and every time I do look at my shortcomings, I forget they're mine. And I think they're my husband's. And I separate his issues from mine. And that's what the 10th step reminds me, and I need it all the time. So I can stay in my backyard and focus on my shortcomings, and then I feel the peace, and then everything else has fallen into place. I never even had peace until I came into CoDA. And it's nice when you do recover, because you are no longer the victim. And then I can enjoy my relationship because I'm in check taking care of myself. And that's what 10th step reminds me. It's not about me, and to not be a victim, so that way I can respect my husband as well and just think about my shortcomings. That's one of the hardest things to do, is to see our own faults. And that's what's nice about step 10, to remind us that we do have the faults, because they get less and less repeated when we recognize them. When I got tired of acting out at the first of this year, I said, I'm done. I suffer my own consequences when I react. It doesn't hurt anybody, and I make myself the victim. So that's one of the hardest things, too, that I'm working at, is not reacting, because I am in a long-term relationship that I want to get better. And that's what the 10th step does for me. It's almost like going back to step 1, getting in my own backyard and worrying about me. And then I can worry about somebody else. Thank you for letting me share.
before we move on to the next reading, I don't think I mentioned another part of the 10th step is one with your sponsor. I mean, like I say, during the day, sometimes I have to call my sponsor just to vent, and then he'll tell me I need to make that 10th step. But something that's real important is maybe once or twice a year to sit down with your sponsor and really do a thorough, let me start over. Do a thorough 10th step with your sponsor. But I also find that if you do a daily 10th step, sometimes you don't have to do those 10 steps with your sponsor because you keep your slate clean from the very beginning. Okay, can we get a volunteer to read our next part of the reading? Okay. Read all this part right there.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth, codependent. Developing a personal checklist is one way to work 10-step. Step 10. Although we may think of this step as something we perform at the end of the day, many of us have found it useful to do a midday inventory. This can help us reconnect with ourselves and become centered as we move into our afternoon activities. Some suggestions for a personal checklist might include, am I living my higher power's will? Am I practicing gratitude? Did I do some form of prayer and/or meditation? Did I communicate in a healthy way today? If I let my codependent behavior take over today, what was that codependent behavior? Am I getting enough sleep and rest? Recreation? Did I exercise today, like take a walk, swim, or do any other self-care activity? Am I eating a healthy diet? Did I honor my feelings today? Am I taking care of myself? This step supports us in staying current and present in our lives. By using the 10th step, we experience personal accountability on a daily basis. Have we completed what we said we would do today? Did we let go of codependent behavior such as trying to change or trying to control others? Did we observe the positives and celebrate new behavior and recovery?
Thanks, Mary Beth.
This is something that I didn't know to do in a 10th step. I guess I didn't have the full understanding of it. And Randy and I, we try to practice this on a regular basis, is that we sit down with each other in the evening. And similar to this worksheet that we put in there is, we'll take turns reading a question and each of us responding to that. And that's kind of it's a nice way of having a closing to our day. It's a nice way of connecting with each other in a healthy, recovering way. And these are just some of the suggestions that are in here that we do, and each of us find a way to do that. And this is an area that I have to get better at, because I think if I can get better at doing this on a regular basis, then I'm going to be a lot more comfortable making my amends that are still on my list from 2 years ago. And I'm not proud to say that, but this is a program of honesty, and each time I say this, it's an action. Now I need to put my action, or it's the words, now I need to put those words into action, which we've heard today, and I was glad that I heard that. We'll go ahead and open it up for discussion on this area that we've just read, and come on up to the microphone.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm a recovering codependent.
Mark.
My higher power's will. This is something that just over the last probably 60 days, I've really came into play with my life. Understanding that my will means absolutely nothing has been a big struggle for me. I always thought it was my will and I had that control, especially over my wife, right? No, it doesn't work that way. Every day now I get up and one of my first things I do is I do my serenity prayer. I have a meditation that I read from a book called Answers in the Heart. And then I ask, okay, God, what is your will for me today? But I also say, you know what? I'm not a mind reader. You have to give me signs. You have to tell me. You have to show me what you wanted for my will today. This is something that program has really, really taught me. How to take that and actually understand that it's not my will, it's God's. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gary, grateful, recovering codependent.
Hey, Gary.
Bless you, Dory. Each night, I end the day with a 10-step inventory, and I go over the day and ask myself, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Who have I harmed? What amends do I need to make? Have I harmed myself? What amends do I need to make to myself? What am I grateful for? The gratitude list is very important, because no matter how bad the day has gone, I know I can always find something to be grateful for, always. And what else was on that list that I do? I'm not a betrayal, grudge, or resentment collector. I've learned that because I know that in order to move on with my life, I need to forgive those who've harmed me. I know I need to ask forgiveness for those who I've harmed, and I need to forgive myself. And that's something I need to affirm every day. So I can't live with conflict. And if I've caused any problems, I know I need to take care of it immediately. And that's why I do a 10th step every night, because I just can't live with any kind of conflict in my life. And if there's any resentments, grudges, or betrayals going on, I need to take care of that immediately. So if I've done any harm to anybody, or even if someone's done harm to me, I need to take care of that immediately. And that's what the 10th step helps me do. So, and I end the day also reading The Language of Letting Go. And that gives me inspiration. And now that I have a fiance, we read it together and we discuss it. And that helps a lot with the 10th step prayer. So this works great in my life. It really does. Thank you.
I'm Mary Beth, codependent, and I think it was great. I just love being in here and listening to you guys, because being new in the program, going through the steps, I've been in just less than 2 years, and I always am so self-critical, because I guess my family of origin and going over the patterns and characteristics and getting to the 10th step, I love when it says, did we observe the positive and celebrate new behavior in recovery? And I'm always looking at, what aren't I doing right? Or, how could I be better? And I'm always self-analyzing. I'm doing an inventory 24/7. And how did I leave people feeling? How do I feel? But it's never sort of going toward the positive. I'm really glad I was in this room today, because just reading this and starting with that laughter, Kathy, I mean, it is kind of silly, but it changes your state. And if I wake up and I'm sort of I totally overwhelm myself every day, because I think I can do way more than I can really do, because I want to do so much. And having this 10th step allows me to be human and to celebrate new behavior in recovery. What am I doing that's great today? Whereas my old self would have said, what didn't I accomplish? What didn't I do? Did I say something to someone that I didn't mean? And I would make myself totally go from up here down. And having this step, gives me that gift that I can actually acknowledge the things I did that were great, and it will make today and tomorrow even better. Thanks. Thanks, Rebecca.
There's a lot in this part of the reading. Like Mary Beth says, the one thing that I've got to be reminded of is that when I do the 10th step, I got to look at what I did during the day that was positive. All these things. Am I taking care of myself? Get away from everything else, but am I taking care of myself? Am I honoring my feelings today? Or am I discounting them? Am I telling myself how stupid I am? Why you being this way? Or am I just saying, this is the way I feel for today. It's okay to feel it. I'm a human being. I have feelings, and whatever those feelings might be, if it's sadness or if it's... I like what one of my sponsors said. He goes, when I get depressed, I'm thinking about myself. It's like, that's about the truth of it. If I'm depressed, it's generally because I'm thinking about myself and poor, pitiful me. And when I get that way, I go right to gratitude. So remember that throughout the day too, and especially at the end of the day, really take some time to focus on all the positive things you did for yourself and for others, okay? Because you might have had a beautiful day all day long and not done any kind of wrong at all. Doesn't mean, the 10th step is all the wrong you did. You might not have done a darn thing wrong during the day. It might have been all positive. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, that's what I was saying about my gratitude prayer, because what I'm doing is I'm thanking God for all the good things, and I thank God for the good things that happened, and then turn that into my prayer for the next day. Thank you for what happened today, and pray for good things to happen tomorrow, not only for me, but for all the people in my life. So that is the positive aspect of the prayer.
Thanks, Gary.
Hello, I'm Sharon, and I'm kind of reiterating what everybody said, but there was something that I wanted to think too. I was also one that just focused on the negativity every single day, woke up mad, and then worked on cheering myself up. Now when I get up in the morning, I also have daily affirmations, and I make them up. Because instead of sitting and thinking of all the bad things I don't have in my life and the things I wish, I write down the things I'm grateful for. I have 3 adult kids in their 30s. I'm a grandmother of 5 grandkids, and I'm still in a relationship that gets better, and I'm grateful. So I live sometimes 4 or 5 times thanking God for what I do have in my life today instead of worrying for what I don't. So I make up daily affirmations. And positive thinking, it doesn't only work, it's also, it spreads. Other people feel more positive when they're around you too. And it's contagious, just like negativity can be. Thank you.
She said something about a positive affirmation. I'm also an alcoholic, and in that meeting every morning, I identify as a happy alcoholic, and am I always happy every day in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning? I can't necessarily say that I am, but it is a positive affirmation. And I had one guy, he just shook his head every morning. You're so full of crap, Boyd. You're so full of crap. When I told him it's a positive affirmation, I'm not always happy. But I start my day off, and to watch that room when I say happy alcoholic, I know this is a code, but this is, the affirmation part, everybody lights up. Everybody gets a big smile on their face, and everybody laughs, and that is so important. Even though I might not be having the best day, everybody else gets that laugh and that smile on their face first thing in the morning.
I just wanted to say, for some reason, my being, my interior of me, I always felt like I had to go through everything in a happy, joyous, and free environment. That's just who I am. And I do believe that. I really do. But what's difficult, and this is why I'm sharing this, is some of you might identify that, is when I get to a place where I don't feel right or I'm depressed or whatever, that's probably more difficult for me than anything else, because I'm thinking there's something wrong. And we talked about, feelings and things like that. That's the time that I just have to honor. That's just what it is for today, and it's okay. The positive affirmations, that's just kind of how I am. I'm always going to be that way. That's my makeup, and I'm glad that I have that. But when I do get into a place where I'm not comfortable, I just have to allow that to be. And so I just wanted to say that. Can we get another volunteer to read the next section of reading?
Hi, my name is Elle. How far do you want me to go? Great. Hi. Having different feelings from others does not mean we are wrong. Using step 10 helps us understand what our part and what we are responsible for. The step is not used to get approval, to be right, or solve our feelings of anxiety. In recovery, before we react, we slow down, look at the situation clearly, and then take action if needed. We remind ourselves daily that it is human not to be perfect, and that is okay. Admitting that we are human, we are then free to focus on recovery. With our higher power, it is possible for us to change by being honest about our wrongs and admitting them. As we admit and let go, we are empowered to live God's will. We can forgive ourselves and develop a loving relationship with ourselves. Thank you.
You know, I like this, we can forgive ourselves and develop a loving relationship with ourselves. You know, one of the things I like to look at is that if I'm in a state of chaos, I am definitely living on my will. You know, I mean, it's just because I'm trying to control everything. Where if I'm in a place of serenity, then that's how I determine that I'm living within God's will at that point in time.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
Hi, Joy Codependent. One of the struggles that I had in my life as a codependent was that I was not able to have the proper empathy for other people. I could develop it for myself because I had a victim mentality, and I could see how I had been harmed and how my life had gone a certain way because of certain things that had happened from the get-go in my life. And it's put me on a trajectory towards an end that wasn't my optimal desire. And I was unhappy about it. And somehow I thought that if I could get my needs met, then the rest of the world would be okay. And what the program did for me was it turned that equation around inside of me, and it said that instead of reading having different feelings from another does not mean we are wrong, I had to say when another person has different feelings from mine, they are not wrong. And it helped me to understand, that in itself helped me to get closer to the truth, and it helped to relieve me of anxiety and let that other person off the hook, which in turn calmed me down as a person to think, yeah, well, wait a minute, maybe they're just as powerless as I am over this and this that I'm mad at them for. And it helped me to develop some sense of proper respect and empathy for the people around me, which then in turn eased up the relationships that weren't going so well. And it also helped me to that halt thing where I could stop and take a moment and maybe pray or meditate or whatever, or just even in the middle of the conflict or whatever, is to stop and pause and try to get a little more clarity on what's actually going on here, and then take an appropriate action. But that's taking me a long time to learn. But thank you. That's it.
You know, it's really a blessing to have a partner that's in recovery, and I can't say how important that is and how much it's benefited mine and Kathy's relationship, and it's taken other people's feelings on. One of the things that Kathy and I had to do, because we always took everything each other said to each other personally. You know, if she would say something to me, then I would go on the defense right away. And so one of the things we learned to do is that this is about me. This has nothing to do with you. Because she would say something to me, that, you know, you're doing, this is bothering me, that's bothering me, blah, blah, and I would go into defense right away. She said, Randy, wait a second. This has nothing to do with you. And she had to remind me that she loved me, I'm okay, but this is how I'm feeling right now. This is all about me. It has nothing, because I made everything about me. I mean, I lived that victim role for 38 years of my life, you know. So, I mean, that's just another way of in a healthy relationship. You know, sometimes they go, well, I don't know how to speak to my, you know, I don't know how to say it to them. I go, well, first of all, one of the best things to do so you don't put the other person on the defense is one, don't say you, I, and two, tell them, just flat out tell them, this is about me, not about you. This is how I feel, and I'm supporting you, and I love you, but this is how I feel about the situation.
Hi, I'm Margaret. And I've done this in the wrong order. I got the T-shirt, but I haven't been there and done that. I found this T-shirt for $5 after like my third CoDA meeting, and I thought this is probably the only safe place I can wear this. So here I am. But it says "I love me." Anyway. What strikes me is we can forgive ourselves and develop loving relationship with ourselves. I mean, that's, you know, having hit bottom with some relationships, I realized that I really needed some help a couple weeks ago. And so here I am. But what happened to me is that I let all my self-esteem hinge on my ability to make money, and that hasn't worked out in the last year or so. So I'm left with nothing, and then I sought a bunch of not very good relationships to fill that gap. I'm still trying to make some money, and I still don't have any relationships. And I just really got shocked, and it's hard to share that, but I at least recognize that there's something wrong here. And I realized that I came from a family where it was all about the money. My father, I remember calling him when I was in college. I said, "What are you doing, Dad?" "I'm counting my money." And I literally said that on the phone. And here I am, I'm just like my father, you know, trying to figure out if I have enough money to live on. And then because I'm not in any relationships and I have never been, had the faith that I would find a relationship where it would be on equal footing, or that somebody would actually want to provide for me, because I was always taught that I better fend for myself. I don't know how to conduct myself in relationships on even ground. I really don't know. And having been in another 12-step program for some time, you know, I've got those variables out of the equation, but I have this onion that really needs to be peeled. So I'm really grateful for what's going on here this weekend, and I thank you all for listening.
Thank
You know, what she said about the relationship, I love talking about relationships. I mean, I could do it all day long, you know, but the most important relationship I have learned is a relationship with me. And when I work with my guys and other people, if I can't love myself, how can I have any, you know, how can I love anybody else? And if I don't love myself, how do I know what I want from everybody? You know, and we let other things define us. When I lost my business over a year ago, oh man, I thought I knew myself. My identity was my business. And I didn't realize how much I identified myself with that very successful business. And it was really hard for me to get over that because, well, don't you know who I am in business world? And now I was nothing but me, the raw Randy. And what I found out is in both the programs I worked is that people didn't even know what I did. People knew me for who I was and what I did in the programs. That's all that people knew me for. You know, and the one way that I really got to know myself was through working the 12 steps of the Codependence Anonymous book. That really got to a point to where I learned who I was. So.
I'm Marilyn, I'm codependent.
Hey, Marilyn.
I have someone that I work with that I do not like at all. And I don't think he likes me very much, and we've been working together for decades. And a few months ago, it was simmering and simmering and simmering, and finally we just clashed right in the middle of work, right in the middle of everybody. And I guess I went back to like my 13-year-old, and I said something really childish. And my step 10 just like that, it clicked. And of course he said something back to me, and it was like romper room. So I just excused myself from my client, and I walked over to him and I said, "I'm really sorry, that was really childish. I should not have said that." And his face was, I could not believe the miracle. It was just amazing. I am now able to be with him all day without wanting to wring his neck. I still don't like him, he's still a jerk, but I clean my side of the street. And his, you know, it's amazing how when we change, it seems like everybody else changes too. And it took me a long time to realize it wasn't everyone else that was changing. Just by me changing, I don't have to be in the chaos. I don't have to be in the, just, you know, and I don't have to like him. And he doesn't have to like me, and that took me so long to finally, you know, I have choices, but I need to take care of my part. So I just ignore his part now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
You know, I just want to say that there's a couple paragraphs, or a couple sentences in this last paragraph. We remind ourselves daily that it's human not to be perfect, and that's okay. As the oldest child of 3, you know, I thought I was one that had to set the example, so I kind of lived in that image of what perfect should be. When I married my husband, I got put on a pedestal. And it's hard for me to say that because I thought that was love. And as our relationship's gone on, I've realized that it sucks to be on a pedestal. It really does. Being on that pedestal allowed me to get away with a lot more than I probably should have. But the other sentence in here that kind of brings me off that pedestal and allows me to be more human is, with our higher power, it is possible for us to change by being honest about our wrongs and admitting them. And for me, I was really good at manipulating, so being honest was really key for me to clear my conscience, to clear my heart, to become open. And that's what CoDA brought out of me, was the honesty. I didn't have to lie. I didn't have to be on the pedestal and be perfect. And so to know that it's okay and that I can knock my butt right off that pedestal and feel good about it is what I like to look at. That's the vision I have, is take me off. So, can we get a final person to read the last couple paragraphs, please? Yeah, just the last two. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Mark, gratefully recovering codependent.
Hey, Mark.
When we know that we have done wrong, it is good to act promptly before we talk ourselves out of it. When we are in doubt about our need to make amends, we can ask our higher power for clarity. When we admit our mistakes, we let go of the impossible goal of being perfect. When a person is not available whom we can make amends directly, we can work with our sponsor or another CoDA member and our higher power. When we admit our wrongs, we experience a new freedom. Step 10 teaches us to review our behavior regularly. The work we do in this step helps us to increase our awareness and to understand where we need to practice new behavior. Being codependent is not something we can just stop doing, but through this step, we begin to live more honest and fulfilling lives. Step 10 is a daily anchor in our recovery process, which frees us from the bonds of codependency.
Thanks, Mark. You know, in this first sentence, it is good to act promptly before we talk ourselves out of it. You know, I mentioned that in business, I would often make amends right away, but there was one particular incident. It was towards the end of the, right before the crash, and everybody was under a lot of pressure. And I had a really good client that I'd worked for 10 years. And the superintendent had come up to me and says, "You will work this Sunday," you know, and I fought it. And I wasn't very kind about the way I fought it. And as I left, and actually there had been another incident earlier in the week where we got into it with the same superintendent. And both times as I left the job, I called my CoDA sponsor and he says, "Randy, you need to make amends right now. You need to call him right now." And as hard as it was to do, like I said, I don't want my head spinning. I want to be serene. I picked up the phone and I called this guy right away. You know, and both times he says, "You know, it's all right, Randy, I understand." But the second time when I called him, I says, "You know, I understand that you're under a lot of pressure." He'd been threatened with his job. With this job, we had a deadline of like the 15th of the month, which was a month. And his boss came up to me and says, "You will have this done by the 1st of the month or you're going to have to look for another job." So he was under pressure, and I knew it, and he was putting me under pressure. But you know, by making those amends to that guy, both times he said thank you, and my relationship with him improved tenfold. I mean, it was amazing the relationship that we developed even after my second amends in the same week. So You know, it's make it right away. I promise you, you'll be relieved.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth, codependent. You know, that last sentence, freedom from our codependency. I didn't really want to stand up here right now because I'm experiencing a lot of just emotion coming up from my husband. We've been separated for almost 4 years. And something just affected me last night and today. And I didn't realize the depth of how the codependency within me created such walls. And every time I tried to express myself in my marriage, my husband took it personally. You know, just like Randy was just sharing with him in his relationship. And I guess it just has impacted me. And I'm so emotional right now because I realized I was so unhappy in my marriage. And every time I did come from an I statement, it was probably delivered to my husband as blame that he wasn't good enough, and I'm going through a lot of pain now, feeling what he may be feeling on the other side in his codependency. And both of our codependency together just created such walls and barriers. And being present to the depth of how codependency can break people apart. And it's not that I have any regrets not being in this relationship right now. I don't want to be married to this man, but to think of all, you know, the wreckage and the uncomfortability with children around, and how this program has helped me heal so much in almost 2 years, and how I'm so grateful at the same time to have healthier relationships. But to not take something personally is so hard for me. No matter what aspect of my life, spirituality, work, you know, I take things so to the core of my heart. And that detachment with love is, you know, I have to keep practicing that. And I've got to heal from my relationship with my husband. I was married for 20 years, and I'm feeling so much pain of how much hurt because he didn't know. And I actually was in it thinking he was causing something that, you know, his narcissism was intentional. And it wasn't intentional. He adored me. He put me up on a pedestal. And I'm experiencing a lot of forgiveness for him and for myself because he didn't know just like I didn't know. And I'm just really grateful that I'm standing up here right now because, you know, it's difficult for me to come to a realization, but I want that freedom from codependency. So I'm willing to share my truth with you guys. So thanks.
Thanks, Mary Beth.
My name is Dory, and I'm codependent. Part of my 10th step in my work in the steps is my amends and changes I want to make for myself. So one thing I ask myself is, am I using my voice in a healthy way, including the voice in my head? I perceived my father as being very critical, and I somehow developed, you know, this critic inside of my head. So one thing I want to say is, am I talking in a positive and respectful way to myself? And when I'm talking to someone else, I want to ask, would you like feedback? Instead of just volunteering it. And when I'm saying something to someone else, if they're the type of person that wants to fix it, like if it's a relationship especially, I want to say, this is about me. What I need from you is for you to listen and hear me and be a witness to my feelings. And that way I can be heard without the other person thinking they have to do something other than just to hear who I am in that moment.
You know, that's been another part of mine and Kathy's relationship, is sitting down, and she would always want to fix, and I never wanted to fix anything. No, I wanted to fix too. But now when we talk, again, we've gotten better to just listen, but at first it was, I just need to vent. I don't need no advice. I don't need no feedback. I need to be heard right now. And that's all I want you to do is listen. And that's really important, because if I'm talking, I'm thinking about myself and how important I can be. So it's a great way in the relationship also to be. These are ways to become intimate with your partner. That's true intimacy. Everybody had enough time? We can we're just limited on time, so I'm sorry. We can go through them and answer them as we go too. So, the first one is, what is the purpose of a 10th step? And Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, the purpose of step 10 for me is just to clear that gut, that feeling of it's just a feeling I have when I know I've done something wrong now. Before I would defend and protect my wrong. Now I get to acknowledge it. Awareness has been huge for me in my recovery, is just being aware that it exists. And so the purpose of step 10 to me is to be more aware, acknowledge when I'm feeling that I'm wrong, and freeing myself of that feeling. So if anybody else wants to come up and share on that, we'll get through these as quick as we can. Anybody else?
Mine's similar, Mary Beth Codependent. The purpose of my 10th step is for self-awareness, acknowledging my defects of character as well as the positive aspects of recovery, making amends whenever possible, honoring myself and others, creating time to reflect, to heal, to move forward, and freeing myself.
Hi, I'm Debbie. Mine's real selfish. My annual 4-step will be a lot smaller if I do a daily 10-step.
That is true. That is true.
Hi, I'm Sharon, and the purpose of my 12-step is to remind me of my shortcomings so I can stop repeating them, and they get fewer and further between.
Dory, codependent. I put with my awareness, I can decide on different behaviors for getting different results. I can catch things sooner before they become more of a pattern and cause more consequences.
Okay, how does doing a 10th step enhance my recovery? That's a good one. I mean, I think I've explained it a couple of times during my talking that, I can walk away with a lot more serenity instead of being a chaotic during the course of the day, because I can dig my heels in and pretty much screw you. I'm not going to say a word to you. Matter of fact, 6 months into my sobriety, something happened. My wife told me to call my sponsor. I told her where she could go with that. I didn't call my sponsor. My daughter had the phone in her hand calling 911, and thank God she didn't push the numbers. And that's because I dug my heels in, and I was going to prove to everybody else that they were the ones that was wrong. I was perfectly okay in my actions, and I had to make my daughter, who I'd worked on for 6 months, trying to get our relationship back together. Everything I'd done in 6 months went right out the window. The first time I tried to make amends, she said, "Dad, don't touch me, get away from me." And thank God today I stayed with the amends, and I have been walking the talk instead of just saying I'm sorry and repeating the action. Because that's another thing that's important is on a 10th step is we can say we're sorry, but how many times are you going to keep repeating the same action and keep on going back and asking and telling them you're sorry? Pretty soon the people aren't going to believe you. It's like slapping them in the face every morning and say, "I'm sorry." Next morning slap them in the face, "I'm sorry." Pretty soon they're going to tell you to go screw yourself.
Hi, I'm Joy, a codependent. How does doing a 10th step enhance my recovery? It gives me a sense of dignity and self-esteem to be taking proper care of myself and to be accountable for my behavior.
I'm very codependent. Reminds me that I'm human and therefore imperfect, and humble myself before God, my higher power.
That's great.
What is my list of positive for my 10th step today? Gosh, that's tough. I'm on the fly here. The positives that I think that I have is just, being of service, being open and willing, being able to listen, And I think if I can do all of those things and show up in my day in that positive trait, then I'm in a good place, and I may not even have to make an amends or do a 10th step for the day. So being open, willing, honest, being of service, being a good listener, I think those are the positive things that I can bring to my day that will stay in a positive place for me in a 10th step.
Christian codependent. For me, the positive list is staying out of denial. I can be in complete denial that, I'm perfect, don't you know that? And whenever I don't do a 10th step and look at my day, I'm going to blame you. I'm going to blame you for everything that's wrong in my life. And it's just destructive. There's no constructive life for me when I'm blaming other people for my character defects. So my positive things are always looking for joy in people instead of sucking the joy out of their life, Always looking for someone's light, looking for little things. I made a couple notes to myself during the thing of some prejudices I have with some of you that we're sharing here. And I mean, you're wonderful. I don't mean to be that way, but it's the way my brain thinks. Staying inside of my character defects and looking at the crap I do during the day, it keeps me real and keeps me in a place where, I can be grateful for everybody around me. And I think that's where God wants me to be. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm recovering codependent. Before I even make a list of my positives for my 10th step, what it does is it helps me recognize I'm not perfect. One of the positives is that it helps me be in tune with my higher power, which for me, at this point in my life, pretty much is everything I have, along with my grateful and wonderful wife. But I'm talking for me. And having those positive things, listing those positive things each and every day, I think what it also does for me most, it helps me find the strength from within me.
I'm Darcy, and I'm a happy codependent. Listing the positive reminds me of who I really am. When I take time to notice them in myself, I will take time to notice them in others. I start with radical loving kindness for me and can extend it to others. This is the meaning of CoDA for me. Before CoDA, all my happiness was external. So I look to you to fix you. I look to you for your happiness. I look to you for your approval. And that's where I thought my happiness came from, because it was service for you without anything inside. And CoDA helped me flip this around to realize that I can accept you only to the extent that I can accept myself. And so extending the compassion and the loving kindness to me allows me to see it in you. Thanks.
Thanks, Darcy.
Well, this is a positive making up for a negative, but my ex-wife has been treating me very badly since our divorce, and we finally sold our house yesterday. And I've had some forms on my desk that I was supposed to send out, and I sent them out today, and they're forms that she needs to get moving now that we've sold our house. So I finally sent them out today, so that was positive.
Right. Yeah, those are the little things like that, that we got to pat our back on. We got to pat ourselves on the back for, and also on the first page of that reading, there's a whole list of positives. Am I living my higher power's will? Or you could just take it away. Yeah, I've lived my higher power's will today. I've practiced gratitude today. I've done some form of prayer and meditation. I've communicated in a healthy way. I didn't let my codependent behavior take over today. I'm getting enough sleep and rest and recreation. That's important too. We get so caught up in our daily lives and work and everything else. We might be getting the rest, but what do we do for ourselves to recreate? Are we out taking a walk, enjoying the outdoors? Are we hiking? Are we going to the gym? Whatever it might be for you, we need to take time and find time for ourselves in that recreation part. I exercise today. I took a walk, swim, or do any other I'm eating healthy. I honored my feelings today, and I took care of myself today. So there's a lot of positive attributes right there. Just take the question part out of it, and there's a lot of positive attributes right there. Okay. The next one is, how do I know when I'm wrong, and what behaviors do I exhibit? And being I've touched on that several times already, I'll let Kathy touch on it a little bit.
I kind of touched on it too, most recently with the gal I worked with, but the behaviors, I don't think maybe the behaviors are there and there's a little denial on my part, or maybe I just need to be more aware of them. Because I know when I'm wrong just by the way I feel. I just don't feel, I feel out of balance. I really feel out of balance. And sometimes I'll act on that immediately, but right now, I would say the most part, I sit with that feeling for a while. And maybe that's just God's way of allowing me to see it a little stronger, a little deeper. But I do have a feeling, and I know that it's there and it exists. And again, if I can stay clean in my positives throughout the day, I'm hoping that I don't have to get into a constant step 10. But when I do have to make that amends, I need to honor that feeling and take care of it right then and there. So.
I'm still Debbie. I don't always know when I don't always know when I'm wrong, but I know I can count on you guys to let me know, because usually you will. And again, then my role is just to be open and humble, and if, that's just not projection on your part, it really, here's my rule of thumb, because I'm in denial at any given point. If I hear the same thing from two different sources, it's usually the truth, and I'm just in denial about it. So that's kind of my rule of thumb. Thanks.
Thank you, Debbie.
Hi, I'm Sharon. How do I know when I'm wrong? I go 0 to 60. I'll piss everybody off. I'll blame everybody. There won't be a whole lot of people that don't know that I'm upset. I will suffer my consequences. Everybody will be upset with me. Now I'm at the point where it doesn't feel good, and it's not good for me health-wise, emotionally, to have everybody hate me. And then now when I'm at that point and I realize, oh my God, I reacted and poorly, I can be humble and I can admit I'm wrong and go all the way back from 60 to 0. And now I just say I'm sorry instead of making up all sorts of excuses for my behavior. And it sure ends a lot quicker than it used to, with a lot less consequences.
Thank you.
Are you putting me on the spot here? You're picking and choosing what I get to say. This is a good one for me, though, I will admit. What prevents me from admitting my wrongs? I can tell we've been married for a long time. Gosh, it's that damn 4-letter word, fear. It creeps into me all the time. And it's the fear of disappointment. It's the fear that I've let you down. It's the fear that you're going to think less of me. It's crazy thinking. The flip side, as I've said before, when I can acknowledge and make that amends, it's such a freeing feel that I don't know why I'm wanting to fight fear, because it really is just false evidence appearing real. And I've got to remember that. So that blocks me.
For me, it's two things. It's ego and fear. It's like I've dug my heels in a couple of times, and all it is my ego, because God darn it, don't you know I'm right? You're wrong, period, in the conversation. I don't owe you a man's what. But, again, when I pull the heels out of the soil and move forward and make that amends, I'm much freer.
Hi, Mary Beth. What prevents me, I think, is going back to my family of origin and being around a very critical mother as a young child and not realizing that that was her thing, not me. So I think what prevents me today sometimes is the fear of self-awareness. But I wrote down saturation of wreckage and having that overwhelm with what to do with just being in that reality of, looking at myself, even with the good and the bad, and just realizing that detachment with love, and that it's okay if there's a flaw. It doesn't, not to take it personally.
One of the other things that did it for me is, because I own my own business, a construction business, and I had a lot of employees, is that I had to be in control of everything. And for me to admit I was wrong in front of my employees would make me look weaker and not as such a good employer. But once I got into recovery, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. And, therefore, my guys, when they made a mistake, I could allow them, it's okay. You're not perfect. You're a human being. You're not going to be perfect every day. And so because I was in a control position owning the business, I couldn't let my guard down and show you that I was weak and wrong.
How does this step assist me in letting go and living in the present? Some of this stuff I feel like I'm repeating over, but I guess it's just I need to hear myself, in this room. Letting go is just, sometimes it always felt like a cop-out. It felt like it was almost too easy to do at the beginning. But when I've learned to let go, I've learned to be present. And I think for me, if I was hanging on to so much stuff, I was missing what was going on out here. So working a step 10 lets me let go of that so I can be open for what's being brought to me, what's my awareness going to be for that day. If I get too much stuff in there, there's no room. And so step 10 allows me to let go, to be open for more in my recovery.
Go ahead.
Probably know me now. Hi, I'm Sharon. I just wanted to say, because I love this program so much. Letting go is so difficult for me. It is an everyday effort that I have to make to keep me out of that victim mode. And all I can say is one day at a time. Sometimes 1 minute at a time. And it's not so overwhelming.
Letting go for me lately, the sands of the whirlwind, the sands of the past have been blowing around me because of that business I lost a year ago. And it had nothing to do with anything I did wrong. It was just the state of the economy. But up until this week, or the end of this week, I was sitting around regretting losing that business, because financially, we were pretty well set with that business. And now that I don't have that finance, I'm making that kind of money anymore. It's like, how am I going to do, how am I going to survive? How am I going to do this? I was so used to financial freedom and the freedom that owning a business allowed me, that I couldn't stay in the day. And I went back into a depression again. Because why? Because I was thinking about poor, pitiful me. And the reality is, my life's never been so good. I have a beautiful life. My wife supports everything I'm doing. So just staying in the now, it really helps me to get through all my days.
Thanks. I'm going to piggyback on something that you guys said earlier, that, again, when I don't confront or admit my wrongs, they just ruminate. My disease is one of thinking, and it does keep me out of my present. And if I haven't gotten clean with you and I'm carrying that around, every time I see you, instead of being in my now with you, I'm thinking about what I didn't own and what I need to say to you. And again, it robs me of my life. And again, that's for me part of my codependence is this is a life unlived, and this is part of that. It robs me of my now and being present to interact, and especially in my marriage. And that, I think, I don't know about you guys, but that's the hardest place for me to say I'm wrong. The closer you are to me, the harder it is. It's like coughing up that fur ball. I mean, I could do it so much easier with any of you that are, if I step on your toes in the day. But that's really where the rubber meets the road, and where I really need God to be able to do that, and where I need to do it most.
Thank you. Okay, women, why is it so hard for you to say you're sorry? I mean, my wife's the same way. She tells me all the time, I can't say I'm sorry. especially, she'll do it to everybody else, but getting her to apologize to me, and I've just come to accept, she has a hard time with it, and her actions show me that she's sorry. She doesn't always have to say it. She's probably going to shoot me when I get home now, but that's, hey, it's all about truth and honesty. Real quick, and this is just real simple. Am I willing to work this step into my daily routine? Absolutely. All in favor, say aye. Okay, this has been really nice, because I could sit up here and tell you what I think about all this stuff and tell you this is how I do it. Maybe you ought to try doing it this way. But what was really good is to hear how you all react and how you're going to work this into your daily lives and how it affects you. So we really appreciate you participating in this and allowing us to put on this workshop, and we hope that you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed putting it on.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.